Good morning. I want to continue with a little bit more out of this book, Why Men Love Bitches. And these two chapters I'm going to cover today have to do with maintaining your self-esteem and also in showing appreciation and grace with the person that you're with. And just so you know, there are chapters in here about how not to be a nag and all that. So it's really teaching women how to be good partners, you know? But before I go into that, I made a video yesterday on this book, the chapter about not having sex right away. And I'll put that right up here. And I was just kind of Googling through YouTube, and I found a video that a man made where he was going over this book, and I just went right to the section where he's talking about the sex part. And he did not like that part at all. He was ridiculing it. He said, and I'm not going to say who it is because I don't need people coming after me or whatever, but the point is, this is what some men will say. This is a popular guy in the manosphere. Oh, 30 days, that's way too long. In the 50s or 60s maybe, but today, no. I would know man's going to wait 30 days, unless she's a unicorn maybe. And then I had to stop watching. But the point is, if he's just looking for sex, he's not going to want to wait 30 days. You want to be his unicorn, and he will wait. But the point is not that you have to wait 30 days. The point is for you to figure out when you want sex, where you're like, if he never calls me again after this, I will not regret this. And I think that's the attitude that we have to have before we have sex with men. Because until we really get to know the guy, we have no idea if he's going to call us again after he had sex. Because my experience with men is, unless you're dealing with a really super needy, clingy guy, they're not going to bond through sex. And if they may not even know that that's all they wanted you for, because their testosterone and their arousal is driving their behavior. And if they're not self-aware enough yet, they won't know whether they really like you or they're just sexually aroused. And if that's the case, then after the man has sex with you, he's going to feel satisfied and he's not going to want to see you again. And maybe he'll just want to see you again just for sex. So that's the power in waiting. That's the reason to wait. But gay guys don't think that way because they don't care if it's just a one-night stand. So if you don't care if it's just a one-night stand, then don't wait. The purpose of waiting, to me, is to see if he really likes me or not, and for me to find if I really want to have sex with him. So that's just what I wanted to say about that part. All right, now let's go on to this next chapter. She calls it dumb like a fox, and I don't like that. A lot of the advice that they give women in relationships about, or men in relationships, I think they apply to both genders. For example, a common advice is, when a woman tells you how she feels, don't give her advice, just acknowledge her feelings. Well, the same advice applies to men and to children and to anyone. When people tell you something, they don't want advice, you know? They don't. They want to be heard and treated like an adult who can come up with their own solutions. Sometimes people just want to be heard. So I don't like this, you know, women just want to be heard and men want advice. I don't believe that. I don't give a grown man advice. That would be very presumptuous and grandiose of me to do that. And I don't want a man giving me advice. I'm like, no. But anyway, she calls it dumb like a fox, but I call this chapter more about showing appreciation, respect, grace, and emotional regulation. So to me, it's not manipulative. To me, it's just being gracious with other people. So she says, these are good things to tell a man. You are right. I just think that's a good thing to tell anyone when they're right. She also talks about the difference between catering to his ego and appearing needy. This is a woman who appears needy. Okay, you shouldn't show that you need him to help you with the following things: common sense, coping with your life, emotional stability, reassurance of your self-worth, self-esteem, and feeling complete as a person. However, it is very attractive to man when you show him that you need him to help you with other things, like changing the light bulb, or maybe asking for advice on something with the car, or when I travel and I have a carry-on, I often like a man to help me put it up, you know, because I'm not tall enough to lift it way up, something heavy way up there. Something like that, which is more about allowing ourselves to receive. I don't think that's manipulative in the way that she often talks about. Now, here's another good tip. Praise is an effective tool in getting him to treat you the way you want. Don't complain. There's going to be another whole chapter about nagging and complaining. Nagging and complaining is just loser status, ladies. Don't do it. Do not nag and complain. It's just such a turnoff. Ask for what you want, or praise him when he does things that you like. For example, don't complain, well, you used to bring me flowers. Instead, from this point forward, every bouquet he gives you is the prettiest you have ever seen. Don't complain that he doesn't take you out enough. Instead, every restaurant he takes you to is unbelievable or amazing. And to me, that's not manipulative. It's just choosing to how you communicate and where you put your focus. When you appear softer and more feminine, you appeal to his instinct to protect. When you appear more aggressive, you appeal to his instinct to compete. But I really think it goes the same for men, is to ask for, you know, kind of give like directional cues, or rather than just like criticizing someone for what they're not doing. You never give me sex. That's not going to make her want to have sex with you. That's the only thing I don't like about this chapter, is that she makes it seem like a manipulation strategy. So I'm kind of against that, but I do like the fact that we show each other appreciation, and men do the very same thing with flowers, because men know that we like flowers. But if they never saw another flower, it would be no loss to them. So they do it to make us happy. And so we can also do things to make the man happy. Okay. So let's go on to the next chapter. So the next chapter, I'm going to call it self-esteem. She says, she calls it when women give themselves away and become needy. The main thing is that in a new dating situation, this is really a people-pleasing thing. This could apply to men or to women. We have to be true to ourselves and be willing to say no, and be willing for someone to be upset with us or walk away. And this is the biggest challenge that I often have with people, and that maybe many of you have with people, is when we're empathetic and you know, I feel like, oh, well, if I tell you no, then you'll be upset, or I'll be responsible that I hurt your feelings. And that's a lot of because of how I grew up. You know, I had to be respectful to my parents, I guess, to some extent. You know, I didn't want to upset them, or maybe it's just part of my empathy, and now I have to deal with your upset, or deal with your anger, or deal with you not talking to me. Because I think that's kind of how I was raised. There was some of that, like if one of my parents was upset with me, there must have been something, I don't really have memories of it, but I have a feeling of it, like I can't upset you because you won't be able to handle when you're upset, you won't be able to handle it, or you will be mad at me, or you will leave. Like, there's a fear around it. So that's one of the things I've been working on myself, and it's really tough because a lot of it is so subconscious when people act in ways of things that they don't like. Even a woman faking her orgasm might not even be self-aware enough that she's people-pleasing because she's afraid of telling the guy the truth that she doesn't like what's happening. It's very subtle, you guys. It's very, very subtle, and it's so ingrained, and it's so subconscious. And so what I've been working on in myself is to become more conscious of the choices that I'm making, that I genuinely want this, and to often make conscious choices of saying no, knowing the other person could be upset with me. And just like, no, I don't want to do this, knowing they could be upset, as a way of strengthening that muscle and getting more in tune with what I really want. And that's like a way of gaining more power and more authenticity. So just kind of keep that in mind, where you're subconsciously saying yes out of habit and rote, almost like dissociating, not even really knowing what you want. It can be in the littlest of things, like agreeing how you decorate something, or agreeing to go somewhere you don't really want to go. It's one thing to say, you know what, I don't really want to go, but I'm going to go because I know this is important to you. That's one thing. But to just say, well, I'm going to go, and not say that you don't want to go, it's not authentic. So it can be very subtle. So the main thing is, the book is called Men Love Bitches, the bitch. But the authentic, I'm going to call it the authentic woman. The authentic woman is not governed by fear of losing a man, because she knows the real price to pay is when she loses herself. Almost immediately, women give themselves up in small ways. The cumulative effect of these subtle concessions, however, is what amounts to feeling depleted. Here's the cycle. She develops a myopic view that what he gives is absolutely vital. Because of this fantasy, she gives up everyday needs. She feels more and more drained, but continues to try harder, believing that he'll be the one to make her feel fulfilled again. He senses her willingness to exert herself and relaxes what he gives even more. She senses this and works even harder to jump through hoops. The cycle gets worse as she becomes more and more depleted. What's the solution? Lose the fantasy. And if you feel you're going to resent something after you give it, don't give it. Give only what feels comfortable to you. And this is where I want to go into the condom thing, ladies. If you're having sex with a man that you're not in a committed relationship, the condom goes on. The wrapper, the balloon, the condom goes on. And the way to get into certain situations like this, where like, is to imagine, to play out visually in your mind what you're going to do. That's like a common coaching technique also. If you have pre-practice in your mind what you're going to do or what you're going to say, then when the moment comes, it will automatically come out of your mouth. The same thing is used in like a parenting technique for children. Say you have a teenager, your teenager's going to go to some parties and they're going to be offered drugs, and they're going to be, in the moment, they may just do it to fit in. So you practice with them what to say. You role play and practice, you know, and your teen will learn to say in the role play, I don't want that. I don't want to participate in that. I don't do drugs. And they say it a few times. Then when they actually get in the situation at the party, it will automatically come out of their mouth. I don't do drugs. Okay, so that's a very powerful technique. And you can use that also in your dating situations. You know, if you're a guy and you're like a doormat and you're always paying for women, just practice saying, I trust that you can take care of yourself. I trust that you can take care of yourself. Or I don't pay for other adults. You know, whatever you want to say, just practice saying it, so when the moment comes, it'll come right out of your mouth. And in the sexual situation is to be like, I always use a condom. The condom goes on. And just imagine putting a condom on him. The condom goes on, or this is over. You know, that's how you start getting your boundaries. You got to come up with the ideas first. And I learned this technique in parenting because there'd be so many situations that come up with kids that you're like, well, I don't know what to do. So it's like to predict situations that will happen, to like going grocery shop. You don't want to go grocery shopping with a hungry, tired child. So you set the right scenario. You only go when the child is not hungry or tired. And then when they ask for things, you already know you're going to say, we don't eat this kind of food, or, you know, we're only buying things on the list. So that automatically comes out. And so I think the same thing is to do with men, because a common thing that women are trained from an early age to be pleasing to men, to be kind, to be cooperative. And we just have like a different way of communicating with each other that works well in cooperative groups with other women or in our family, but it doesn't work good in dating. You know, we really have to hold a boundary, because when you're first dating someone, you don't know. This guy could just be out someone that he could be a vagina hunter, he could be a liar, he could be anything. Is to just take it slow and to feel comfortable in going at your own pace. So not to be, and not to have a Cinderella fantasy that someone can complete you, because they cannot. You have to be happy in yourself, and you have to maintain the things that made you happy in yourself when you met this guy, and you cannot slowly stop doing these things, like going to the gym, not meditating, not reading your books, because once you stop doing these things, you have a void that he has to fill. And then he's going to start feeling suffocated, and then the woman is going to start feeling like, my life is out of balance, something's not right, I've got too much of this guy, and not realizing that it's too much of this guy, she thinks she has to get more of this guy, rather than giving herself more space to do the things that made her happy before she even met him. Not losing yourself in a relationship is super important, and I think that has to do with realizing that the whole Cinderella thing is a fairy tale. Just like porn isn't real. Prince Charming is not real. Porn and Prince Charming are fantasies. They're not real, and people get in a lot of trouble because they've seen these images and they think that's reality. Those women in porn are not enjoying themselves. They are being abused for the most part. They're acting. They're not having fun. And Prince Charming is a myth. That's a lot of burden to put on a guy. And the dream girl is a myth. You can meet if you're a whole, complete person who can say no, you have a chance at having a good relationship. But the moment you start people-pleasing, in my opinion, bending over backwards, negating what you really want, faking your orgasms, putting a person as the center of your life, you have no chance at happiness. You are depleting yourself. Depleting yourself. Okay? So, and this is a difficult thing to learn. I think the important thing is to start saying no. And notice when you feel uncomfortable saying no. So let's go into a little bit more of this book. Okay. The cumulative reduction of activities that a woman does when she meets a new guy, and also that a man does when he meets a new woman, frankly, adds up to a significant change in who she is. At some point, the man notices, and it turns him off because he realizes before she does that she's lost her independence. These women are starving to receive something from a man that they need to give to themselves. That's the essence of neediness. When you're starving to receive something from a man or a woman that you need to give to yourself. When you love life with him or without him, that is when he will accept and value you for who you are. Also, when they tell you it's better to give than to receive, that is maybe a spiritual practice, but in relationships, you only give when it is reciprocal. Because if you give too much at lightning speed, then you're going to get resentful when you don't get something back. And you're going to feel depleted. A man needs to bring offerings. Totally agree with this. He needs to be on his toes a little bit. He has to make sure his shoes are tied, his pants are pulled up, and his manners are existent. When he opens car doors, when he minds his P's and Q's, and when he shows his best manners, it means she has his respect. He has to keep himself in check. He doesn't relax in terms of how he behaves around her. In the beginning, try to see him 2/3 of the time that he asks. For the remaining third, you have something else going on. Don't sit at home twiddling your thumbs waiting for its next call. This is not about playing hard to get. This is about being real and keeping the rhythm that you had in your life before you met him. Once you lose your rhythm, you lose your psychological equilibrium, and you become needy. Okay, so if he acts as though it's perfectly normal for you to jump through hoops, don't let that be your guide. Ignore what he says. When he says, I'm spiritual, don't listen. Just look at how he acts. If he said he was spiritual, but he expects a lot of unholy compromising, let your observations be your guide. All right, and that's the next chapter is about nagging no more. So I don't know if I'll keep doing more on this book or if I'm done with it, but I just thought it was like fun topics to go over, and I hope you enjoyed my video, and Happy New Year, you guys.